So last night's elections were an absolute disaster. No ands, ifs, or buts, almost no silver lining whatsoever. Okay, I mean, tiny ones. Jean Shaheen beat Scott Brown in New Hampshire, but she was supposed to win anyway. It's the only good election result you can point to that's not a ballot measure. Some of the ballot measures were obviously good because if you actually ask people specific policies, they're massively progressive, and even in the deepest, reddest states. So the minimum wage passed easily in all these states. Personhood amendment got killed in all the states. And we had marijuana legalized almost everywhere. Sheldon Adelson beat it in Florida by putting $5 million into that race. But that's it. Otherwise, we won on the ballot measures. But all of that is very little encouragement. The reality is it was brutal. It was ugly. So here are your four horsemen of the GOP apocalypse that are now back in the governor's offices and mansions across the country: Rick Scott, Scott Walker, Paul LePage, and Sam Brownback. All those guys are hideous. We were hoping to at least unseat some of them, even if you didn't care about whether Democrats control the Senate in Washington, because Washington is so corrupt. You should care about your own state. Those governors make a huge difference in their own states, including whether to insure people or not to insure people through Obamacare. Now, 2.3 million people will not have insurance because the Republicans won in 6 important states. Those 4 Republican governors are loathsome, and every one of them won. So, wow, great results. Okay, so Democrats are so good at running elections. If you don't realize that's sarcasm, there's something wrong with you. Okay, Michael Grimm, the guy who threatened to throw a reporter off a balcony, has a 20-count indictment against him. He's in New York. He's a Republican. He won. Scott DeJarlais, the guy who has multiple abortions that we know about, 3 at least that we know of, some from his wife, some from his mistress, won in a landslide. How miserable are the Democrats? Don Young, another one of the crazy guys that we've shown you about. He threatened to kill his Democratic opponent, literally, doesn't matter, won. They all won. You turn to the Senate. Bruce Braley is a good progressive candidate in Iowa, the one I was really hoping for. Nope. Joni Ernst, the one who wielded all the guns in all of her ads and said that she was going to go castrate people in Washington. She's looking forward to shooting people, castrating them now in the state's capital. That lunatic who believes in Hobbit homes and the United Nations is doing Project 21 to drive us out of our homes and into little shires. Lunatic. She's a United States Senator now. Mark Udall is a great senator from Colorado who actually fought for our civil liberties. Gone. Mitch McConnell, heart of darkness, heart of corruption, wins easily. Mark Begich wanted to increase Social Security, ran on some good platforms. Mixed record overall, lost, gone. Pat Roberts, some people thought he might lose in Kansas, and Greg Orman, the independent, might win. No, Pat Roberts back in the Senate. These results are horrible all across the country. In West Virginia, an 18-year-old beat a Democrat, an 18-year-old Republican. She's like, let me take some time off from school to kick your ass. Okay? And she did. I mean, Republicans couldn't find a way to lose in these elections, and certainly the Democrats couldn't find a way to win. And then when you get into the local elections, then you get guys like Gordon Dr. Chaps Klingenschmidt. How is that not a fake name? How is that not a name out of Austin Powers? Dr. Chaps. Okay, so guess which way Dr. Chaps is going to go. Of course, Dr. Chaps is going to claim that he's really against gays. Okay, so, and he's going to try to prove that. So this is the lunatic that wrote about a transgender girl, and they're twins. They're in Maine. Now, why he decided to speak up about this when he's in Colorado, I don't know, except that he hates all gay people and all people that aren't just like him. So one of the girls was transgender. They are twins, and here's what he said. Since this transgender girl had an identical twin brother, he said, for one of them to suddenly start dressing like a girl, it's not just a choice, but it's a demonic spirit. It's easy to say that one of those 2 boys is possessed by a demon. Okay, so what should the parents do about it, Dr. Chaps? He's named himself Dr. Chaps. Come on, dude. Anyway, all right. He says, and really what the parents ought to do is take that boy to an exorcist. Yeah, of course they should. Yeah. Take that boy to a minister, or at least discipline the boy, maybe give him a spanking. You probably Dr. Chaps is looking forward to giving him a spanking, but that's a different matter, right? So now, look, you say, why do we even know about this guy? Because it's not just that he was taking pot shots at random people. I mean, way to attack the powerless, by the way. Somebody's going through a difficult time in their lives, trying to find their identity, and you want to go spank them. Okay, get your kicks somewhere else. But of course, he also took on the president. Rostow explains the notoriously anti-LGBT Klingenschmidt came to national attention last year when he attempted to exorcise a demonic spirit from President Barack Obama. Okay, now remember, this guy's running for office. I'm going to tell you what happened in a second, okay? But one more here. Gordon Dr. Chaps Klingenschmidt also said, "We pray against the domestic enemies of the Constitution, against this demon of tyranny who is using the White House occupant. That demonic spirit is oppressing us." Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs believes the president is literally possessed by Beelzebub. Now, if you couldn't tell that he won, you're not paying attention. He didn't just win, he won with 70% of the vote. That guy is now a state representative in Colorado. Colorado, you must be so proud. The whole country is proud of these lunatics that we elected. Now, we turn to the United States Senate, where we're going to have people who are going to be running different science committees who don't believe in science. How's that for fun? Right before the elections, Scientific American's blog did a report on what would happen if the Republicans won. Now, they said, look, there's some guys like Thad Cochran who aren't so bad. They like to fund NASA, etc. But then there are some other issues, and they pointed that out. They say the Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee is all about scientific legislation. This committee controls funding for green technology, aeronautical and space sciences, atmospheric and weather sciences, and scientific research and development. So it's very important, heavily science-oriented, that committee. It is likely, they explained, that the Republicans would appoint Ted Cruz as chairman of Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Cruz is a climate skeptic who recently pushed for a reduction in NASA's budget. It is also noteworthy that he was the public face of last year's government shutdown, which did lasting damage to scientific research. Great. If you think Cruz is bad, wait till you get a load of the next person that they talk about. If Republicans win the Senate, James Inhofe will likely take charge of the Environment and Public Works Committee. That would be, this is according to Scientific American, quote, disastrous for science. They explain why. Inhofe is one of the loudest climate deniers in the Senate, as evidenced by his book, The Greatest Hoax: How the Global Warming Conspiracy Threatens Your Future, and many other public and written statements. If Inhofe gains control of the Senate committee in charge of climate change legislation, that's probably the end of climate change legislation. Not that great strides have been made in the past 7 years of Democratic dominance. And global warming aside, it's probably not a good idea to put someone who calls scientific consensus a hoax in charge of the Senate committee that holds the purse strings for scientific funding. And now that the Republicans have won, Inhofe will almost certainly be the head of that committee. They're going to put a guy in charge of a committee that deals with scientific funding who doesn't really believe in the entirety of the scientific community. He thinks 97% of the world's scientists are involved in a conspiracy theory. He wrote a whole book about how almost all the scientists in the world are perpetrating a hoax on the rest of us. That guy's now in charge.